What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast / live stream, coming to you live each and every Tuesday and Thursday night, twitch.tv / Keeping Karlsson. You should subscribe. Welcome to tonight's show. My name is Ben Burnett. Joining me, as per usual, my best fantasy hockey bud in the world, your pal and mine, Lewis, Mr. E. Ezekiel. Lewis, my friend, how are you doing this fine Thursday evening?
I'm doing good. I feel like I got a bit of a sugar rush. I took the kids to a trunk or treat, so we've done a little bit of like pre-Halloween adventuring and had a few pieces of candy, so I'm like ready to go.
I feel like you should describe what your Halloween costume was, because I loved it.
Oh, okay, I'll try and be quick. Our neighbors were on vacation in Tennessee, and a bear broke into their van and ate all of their edibles. So we obviously decided that I needed to be a bear for Halloween, and then as soon as my costume came in, I tried to tear into the neighbor's van while they were obviously home. So I'm just, annoying everybody as much as I possibly can. I'll go flip over some trash cans next. Yeah, definitely. Causing some mischief. Exactly. That's what Halloween's all about, right?
You're kind of the Dave Betton of your block.
Yeah, just causing trouble because it's fun to do. Yes.
All right. Lewis, thank you for joining us. And as I mentioned at the top, please hang out with us when we do these live streams, 8:30 Eastern, every Tuesday, every Thursday. We are chatting in the chat. We are hanging out with all of our buds. We are answering questions as we go. Super fun time. And, hey, me and Lewis, pretty handsome. So it's fun in here.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's get into the show here.
All right. And we have to start there's no doubt about where we're starting here. And that's about Brad Marchand, who is back, baby. Already, Brad Marchand has returned to the lineup for the Bruins. At first, it looked like he might be out through December or into December at least. Then we got word a few weeks ago that it started to look like the Bruins were targeting Thanksgiving. And then today, the word came out, Brad Marchand is ready to go. He is not going to be playing back-to-back, so he's not going to be in the lineup tomorrow night versus Detroit. Kind of annoying for those of you who have a full lineup tonight and have to bench somebody to get Marchand in tonight. Would have been probably more helpful for him to have waited for the back-to-back the second night, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. And Marchand is already crushing it for his fantasy managers. A goal and an assist already. Looking really, really good to start. Jumps right back onto line one with Bergeron and DeBrusk, while that Krejci line sticks together with Pasternak and Hall in line two. And power play one is a 5-forward look with Bergeron, Marchand, Pasta, DeBrusk, and Krejci, which is a bit of a bummer for Lindholm owners. He will be back on power play one tomorrow, of course, when Marchand does not play in the back-to-back. The second power play unit with Marchand in there, though, has Hampus Lindholm on power play 2, meaning that Matt Grzelcyk is getting 0 power play time. I would probably hold both of those defensemen through the Thursday-Friday back-to-back, particularly Lindholm, who's been kind of decent. 5 points in 7 games so far, not counting tonight. Grzelcyk has been hot to start as well, 3 assists in his first 3 games since returning to the lineup, but not in a way where I'm like thinking that he's going to be a Devon Toews type of, or like Bowen Byram type of player who can
value,
be,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's going to be somebody who's worth holding on to in the lineup. I think the dream is dead for Grzelcyk, and for Lindholm, I think time is ticking down till McAvoy comes back. So all of this to say, Lewis, after all the hype this offseason about the Marchand surgery, whether he'd be able to return to full form, it's very interesting to see him come back a bit early, because to me it seems to suggest that I would not be worried if I knew that he would come back early, because to me it suggests that the Bruins and Marchand are not too worried about it. Last season, he finishes with a 94-point pace. It was the first season he didn't hit a 100-point pace in 5 years. Very curious to know what your projections are for Marchand in 2023.
I mean, yeah, this was an interesting one. And actually it came out that I guess this sort of was the plan all along. Like they kept it, they said close to the vest. but that they had this early return kind of in mind for a little while now. So that's kind of interesting. I'll admit I was pretty scared. I could have had Marchand for pretty cheap, at the auction. And I know a lot of people could have drafted him. He was getting drafted, like around the 5th round, I think. So obviously a ton of value there. He's back and looking great. So, huge value to those folks who were brave enough to go for it. I thought, that double hip surgery has felled other players before, like really brought down their play or pushed them towards an early retirement. So good on you, Brad. That is outstanding. As far as some of these other Bruins, Hampus Lindholm did get a power play assist. So I think I'm not ready to say that 5-player look that we saw for about half of the power play time that was available is necessarily, for sure how things are going to look. I think things are a little chaotic. So it might be something where you want to look at the last game lines on Frozen Tools just to get a sense of how things shake out by the end. We are, of course, recording, after having had 2 periods. So we don't necessarily have the full picture, but yeah, really interesting. And good for Lindholm owners to get in on that power play assist, even if he might not be spending a ton of time on that line.
I will jump in here, Lewis, because that's interesting. You mentioned that looks like David Krejci off the top power play unit, so that's worth monitoring if you're holding on to David Krejci, as I know our intrepid producer John is, and he is likely cringing off screen right now.
Yeah, I was very enthusiastic about Krejci, but I definitely do worry if he is. I thought he was going to have a longer time on power play 1 because we thought we were going to have a big player, a big piece missing for a bit longer, but. As far as projections for Marchand moving forward, I mean, I haven't seen him play with my own 2 eyes, but folks, in the Discord are saying he looks like his old self. He's got a goal and an assist already in this game. And if he's going to get, some extra rest here and there without these back-to-backs, I think besides, this one, there's not another one till the middle of November. So I don't think that's going to cost you a ton of games. Eventually I imagine he will be doing some of these back-to-backs, just not early in his return. So it seems like you're missing a shockingly small number of games. I definitely like him to pace for, I want to be conservative here, but conservative, I think we could say point per game conservatively, I think, moving forward.
I think that is conservative. Exactly. Yeah. I would say 90 points is a pretty reasonable estimate for Marchand. And we'll see how things go as he sort of adjusts to it. I agree with you that I don't think he'll miss every back-to-back. It does remind of the Rope Hintz season a few years ago where we found out after the season that he was being held out of back-to-backs. And it was
with
so
luck, with luck, we'll get a little more guidance on that. And I wonder too if we know ahead of time, hopefully we'll get and maybe an IR designation. I wonder if they'll do that. Is it a healthy scratch really? If he's being, I don't know. We'll see.
No. I would guess that he goes day to day when he's not playing because he's out for the end. Yeah, I think that load management type of thing will probably get him a DTD designation. DTD. Lewis, I need you to take the next segment here because obviously I'm floundering.
Yeah, you just gotta reach deep and dig out your Kirby. Talk about King DTD.
Oh my gosh.
I'm on it because you had that little Kirby carrying everything when you were the only KK podcaster to win last week. So he was carrying all of us. All right. Let's talk about another guy who might be making a relatively quick return. Aaron Ekblad. Looking like mid-November is the target for his return. I know in the card that you pulled up, you talked about, is this maybe an option to go in and get a buy low opportunity? Maybe. But I imagine most Ekblad owners, they have him as their number 1 or number 2 defenseman. And I wonder, I imagine they're paying pretty close attention to any news coming out about him because they're anxious to get him back in the lineup. I actually have an alternative strategy for you, and you tell me what you think of this. I would say maybe when it's, first week of November, start sending out some feelers on Gustav Forsling's owners, with the suggestion that, Aaron Ekblad's return, a loss of some power play time on ice, that might be costly for him. I really don't think his power play time does very much to affect G-Force's value. And so you might be able to get him for relatively cheap. I like him as a depth defenseman. He has a goal here on Thursday night. So yeah, I would maybe be kicking the tires on G-Force. I don't think the Ekblad folks are going to be like, oh, I waited a month to get him back and now I'm going to send him off. But you never know. You might catch somebody who doesn't know that, that return time is a little sooner maybe than they think.
I would not go after Gustav Forsling myself, just because no power play points on the season. So I don't think that too many people are going to be worried about, like, I think there are probably any Gustav Forsling, any manager with Gustav Forsling is going to, that you could grift into trading him to you on the cheap is not going to know that he's on the power play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
But the other piece is that he is currently pacing for 62 points. So that is not the type of player that I would be kicking tires on, because I expect that to go down to 40, 45 points. So, to me,
that could be a buy high. Yeah, I see your point there.
I would say you are buying high, and I don't think that he is going to uphold that production.
All right. Well, we talked quite a bit about Columbus during our last show, and we have some new developments in Columbus. Do you want to take the lead on this one?
Yes. Let's talk about Columbus, the team that I feel like every season there's some sort of drama on this team that causes us to go to them so disproportionately to how high they factor in the standings. They're a very interesting hockey team, I would say.
I think people invest a lot of hope in them. There's a lot of hopium out there for the old Columbus Blue Jackets.
Sure, cannon fodder. Roslovic, Jackie R, as we call him, has replaced Boone Jenner on line one as of yesterday in practice.
Power play one as well.
Also on that top power play. That's exactly right. So we had a lot of questions in the Discord and on Twitter about Jack Roslovic. He was 5% rostered on Yahoo today. And also a lot of questions about dropping Boone Jenner. I personally am still waiting to see what Roslovic does on the top line. To me, it seems very preemptive to rush out and try and get in on a guy who is joining a line and has not produced with that line just yet, no matter how good those line mates are, because to me, it's just as easy for them to switch back to Boone Jenner if Roslovic goes, if they have one bad period, what's to say that it's not Boone Jenner back there? I think the key piece here, though, is that Columbus has a terrible schedule the next 3 weeks. There's only 2 games each of the next 2 weeks and a 6-day gap between games from this Saturday through next Friday. So if you're grabbing a guy like Jack Roslovic, you're going to have to hold him on to, he's just going to ride your bench for basically a full week, and then you'll get him for 2 nights and then basically have to take a GP disadvantage the following week as well to keep him on your roster. Now, if you believe in Jack Roslovic and believe in his ability to hold on to that spot on the top line, then that might be worth it to you. I personally am pretty nervous about that. That's not really my type of streamer, not the type of player I typically add. I like to see somebody who's actually producing in a role, or somebody who has a really nice schedule moving forward. It does impact me sometimes. You're going to miss out on some people who are snapped up too quickly for you, but it also means that, it just goes with my general strategy in terms of maximizing games played. And that's how I like to play. But Lewis, what about you? Are you a little bit more hype on Roslovic than me?
I mean, I do think that he could be really interesting. He has had some success. My ethos is kind of similar to yours in that the way I think about it, though, is that it is less painful psychologically for me to miss out on someone who ends up being good than it is to drop someone who is, to lose someone who then goes on to perform well. So, I wouldn't want to drop someone, playing well. And we had some interesting suggestions of folks to potentially drop, on Twitter and on Discord. At any rate, what I kind of like him for is if he sticks around on the waiver wire, like if people are kind of cool on him, I would love him for a couple days worth of streaming, like for those Finland games, right? If he stays with Line A was so productive the last time he played in Finland a few years ago. Just going by vibes, and we are doing fantasy hockey by vibes this season. Yes. I am interested in doing a, quick couple days stream with him if he sticks around on the waiver wire. But if he gets snapped up by someone else, I'm not going to be crying over that too much, because as you say, game 1 in Finland could be Roslovic, and by game 2, it could be back to Jenner. So,
he could be off it tomorrow. So I'm with you. It sounds like we're on the same page here. A few other notes on Columbus right now. Nice to see Kent Johnson get a couple of looks on this team. Drafted in the top 5 2 years ago, has scored in the last 3 games, I believe. And the emergence of David Jiricek, a 2022 first-round pick, up on the second power play. Not somebody who I'm probably going to grab unless he, maybe there's a Zach Werenski injury. I'm sort of doing the Davey B bad vibe jinx, I guess. But yeah, just a couple of players to watch for in Columbus.
Yeah, anyone but Boquist. I just remember last year Boquist would come in every time Werenski got injured, and I'd be all over him, and he would just produce nothing. So I'm excited for other folks to get a chance out there.
All right, Lewis, we are going to take a very quick break, and when we return, we have a bunch of hot streaks, a couple of cold streaks, and a lot of good times ahead. You're listening to Short Shifts. All right, Lewis, let's hop into the streak section of the show. We got a lot of players we want to talk about, and we're going to start with a guy who is maybe the hottest player in the NHL right now, and that's Dominik Kubalik, a guy who has been all over the fantasy hockey podcast landscape. We've been talking about him on our show. He's come up on Keeping Karlsson. Definitely somebody who I would recommend making sure that he is on your team. He is only 67% rostered, which I say only because, prior to the season, is probably below 5%, but at this point it probably should be like 75 or more percent.
That hat streak is incomparable right now.
Yeah, so up to 10 points in his last 5 games since joining Dylan Larkin on that top line and top power play, and looking like he's kind of back to the guy he was when he was a fantasy asset in Chicago, back up to almost 3 shots per game like he had in those initial years in Chicago. And in those years in Chicago, he was in between a 55 to 60 point guy, those 2 years in a row where he sort of broke out. And then it was last year where he really fell off the map and was below a half point per game. When we look at the 10 points that he's put up in 6 games so far, he's pacing for over 130 points on the season. Obviously, there are a lot of markers that indicate that that's an unsustainable total. He's shooting 25%. His on-ice shooting percent is also way too high at 18%.
That's honestly crazier than the 25% shooting.
Oh, it's much crazier.
Personal shooting, right? Yeah, that 18% team shooting is wild.
Yes, that is not something that anyone... we've seen 25... I think Chris Kreider put up 20% last year or whatever. We never see 18% sustained. So that one is going to drop precipitously. Is that a word?
Nice.
Precipitously?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, I thought I said it wrong. Both those numbers are basically double what I would expect to see from him rest of the season. His point participation rate, which is the percentage of goals he gets points on while he's on the ice, is also much too high at 90%. I'd expect that to come down to around 60 to 65%. So when I think about Dominik Kubalik and what kind of player I expect him to be rest of season, this feels to me a lot like the Troy Terry of 2023, where he comes out, he's just blowing up the league. Nobody sees it coming, and he's putting up this torrid pace that is clearly unsustainable. But he still does deserve to be rostered. He's not I don't think that Kubalik is necessarily going to come down to the point where he's not worth having on a fantasy team this year. I think that he might just be rosterable and good for the rest of the year. I do think that completely depends on his deployment, though. And the numbers we're seeing so far, as I mentioned, so unsustainable. I would say he's more likely a 60 to 65 point guy if things, if the deployment holds. So if I had Kubalik anywhere, I'd be trying to sell. If you're in a league like a cupful where people are likely too skeptical to buy into a hot streak like this, like I had Troy Terry last year, and I ended up trading for Troy Terry, and I got him so cheap because I think there's kind of this psychology where people are like, well, it's a hot streak, so I have to sell because he won't be this good forever. And I think to some extent, don't sell him for nothing. Like, don't go out and get a 60-point guy because you expect him to be there eventually. Like, hold on to him unless you can get a 70 plus 80-point guy, because that's what you should be holding out for right now. And then if he goes down, you got him off the waiver wire, so who cares? So I'd be holding on and enjoying the ride.
Yeah, I really like that approach. And definitely we want to keep an eye on, how things are going to continue to develop with that forward depth. Tyler Bertuzzi will be back at some point. Jakub Vrana may be back at some point. And so, I'm hoping that, as someone who is holding him, that he has kind of forced his way, to be a permanent top 6 fixture. It seems like hard, I think, for the Red Wings to find a way to push him down lower than that, with the way that he's playing right now. And he really seems to have some great chemistry with Dylan Larkin. So, I think, I have him in Cupful. No one is gonna take him from me at a price that I think is gonna be, that great. So I'm just gonna hang on and enjoy having a Red Wing that's fun to cheer for. So I want to move to another player who is really hot, unsustainably so, but definitely deserves to be more rostered than he is with his current deployment. It's relatively recent, so I think that number is climbing. I am talking about Chandler Stephenson. This is a guy who's been hot with a point a game over the last 4. And he is lined up with Stone and Eichel. So this is a relatively new line, just the last few games. But it has been absolutely crushing the opposition. It's been controlling 61% of the shot attempts, which is very strong. But the really incredible part is the actual shots on goal, like that are getting all the way through. They've created 24 over the past 3 games, and their opponents have managed to get 8 on net. So that is a 75% share of actual shots that are getting through and hitting the goalie. I don't really know what's going on with this line that's causing opponents to miss 17 of their 25 shot attempts. I don't know if they're blocking like crazy or what. I really want to take a look at it, and I'm going to keep my eye on that space because I really want to see if they can keep it up.
You could look at Fenwick because that is unblocked shot attempts. So it would delineate which of those are being blocked versus which are.
Yeah. So to clarify, it's not that I am incapable of finding it out, but more that I didn't do it in preparation for the show, but just kind of an interesting thing that I'm trying to keep my eyes on here. So, this has been an offense-defense combo that's really been outstanding, but the numbers are unsustainable for Stephenson's production. He has been in on 100% of the goals scored while he's on the ice, which he won't keep up. But it is encouraging that all 4 of his assists at even strength have been primary assists. So he's really earning all the points that he's getting. He's not just, making a clear and then someone else makes a great pass. So love to see those primary points. He is shooting over 20%, so expect a return to his typical kind of mid-teens as we get a larger sample size with more shots. But he's also gotten 50% or higher power play time on ice the last 3 games. And though he hasn't scored a power play point yet this year, if he can get some of that power play production going, it might mitigate a little bit the regression that I expect to see from some goals being scored while he's out there that he doesn't get in on. And maybe if that shooting percentage comes down a little bit. As long as he is on that line with Eichel and Stone, this is a guy who should absolutely be in your lineup every time you get a chance to play it. He's only 50% rostered on Yahoo, like I said, but he was up 13% yesterday. So I would say that window is closing and closing fast. Snap him up if he is on the wire in your league.
I'm with you there, my friend. And I have to tell you, we have a trade to announce.
Oh, that's really exciting.
The Boston Bruins have dealt forward Jack Studnicka to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for goalie Michael DiPietro and defenseman Jonathan Myrenberg.
Jonathan Myrenberg?
I know.
Unbelievable.
I know. So, yes, tune into the mega show on Sunday to hear that broken down by Brian and Elon.
You got me excited there for a minute.
I'm sorry. Lewis, I'm going to take you to Anaheim and throw some cold water on the show. We have a cold streak to get to, and this is actually somebody who did come up on Keeping Karlsson last week, John Klingberg. Brian and Elon got into a big argument about whether Klingberg was better than Karlsson. I don't know why Brian was arguing because he was clearly wrong. Karlsson is the better option. And Johnny Klingberg has since then not been back on the top power play unit. Still has just 2 points in 7 games played and none in his last 6. Fewer than 2 shots per game. And as I said, no power play or no top power play time the last 2. Instead, Jamie Drysdale is back up there, has not done much with the role. And I'm not advocating that folks go out to add Drysdale. I'm just bringing up Klingberg because he remains 75% rostered. And that number is wild. He should be dropped in so many leagues. Like, we're talking about a position where nobody has looked for the Ducks top power play defenseman in years, and the team is not good, and they don't have a defenseman who is going to make that unit very, very good. Drop John Klingberg.
I think he is very droppable per the graphic on screen.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about who maybe was the last exciting player to man the Ducks power play that was like worth rostering. And this is like back when I was like first listening to Keeping Karlsson. But is it Sammy Vatanen was the last one that was really interesting and worth having? I remember he went on a crazy hot streak, and I traded him for Henrik Lundqvist. In a clown league, but
whoa! Oh, that rocks. I remember there was a year where Cam Fowler was good.
That long ago year.
Is that it? It might. That's so wild.
At least in my fantasy hockey playing career, which only extends about 10 years back. But not a lot of excitement on that blue line. Hey, let's talk about another boring player to close out the show here.
Wait, when you say boring, you don't mean a guy who...
I don't mean boring, sorry. Cam Fowler is boring. Lucas Raymond is exciting and has potential, but he is not snoozing right now, but he is struggling, certainly. Raymond is someone that we thought about talking about last show, and we sort of let him go, and now he still hasn't really produced anything very exciting. There are a few positive signs. He's shooting more at even strength than last year. Last I checked, he was up to about 9 shots per 60 minutes, where last year he was up just around 7. The shooting is not, Dominic Kubalik level when he's out there. He's only getting about 7% shooting percentage while he's been out on the ice, obviously away from Kubalik lately. The only thing I'm worried about is that he has participated in about 2/3 of the goals that he's been on the ice for at even strength. So that probably, to me, seems like around the ceiling of his individual points percentage. We just really need to see some more scoring. But while he is on a second line with Andrew Kopp and Joe Veleno, I just don't see a ton of opportunity there. Again, the new depth was supposed to be one of the big strengths for the Red Wings, but obviously losing Bertuzzi, losing Verana early, has really impacted that. And those depth players, really, if you're not on top line, top power play for the Red Wings, unfortunately, it seemed like a spot where there might be some excitement. But as of right now, not looking great. This may just be a typical sophomore slump, and hopefully he'll work his way through it. Certainly has the potential once he starts going to score at a 65-point pace. With the right line combination, with the right deployment. Not someone that I'm looking to drop right now, but definitely someone that I am watching as kind of a low roster guy. I don't want to get caught snoozing with him. I don't want to get caught, with a little bit of sunk cost and not grab somebody new and interesting when I'm just hanging on to Razor waiting for something to happen.
Well, Lewis, even look back to last year, and he did come out the gate so strong. 21 points in the first 22 games last season, first 22 games of his career. Looked like he was going to be a full-fledged superstar out the box. And ever since that near point per game first quarter of 2022, Lucas Raymond has 38 points in 67 games. That is a 47-point pace in over the last 67 games, and that makes up the majority of his career. So I don't know. Maybe he just isn't quite there yet, and requires a little bit more time, requires some more, some stronger deployment. I don't know what it is, but definitely somebody who at this point I would be beginning to look at cutting my losses on, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at the schedule here, and first off, he's only scored points in one game where he got 2 assists, which is concerning, but he has no goals on, 14 shots or so here. They have games against Minnesota and Buffalo, and I think if he is continuing to not see much production in those games, then I'm going to be thinking about maybe letting go. And people definitely are. He was 75% rostered yesterday. He's only 61% rostered today. So people are starting to get away from Raymond right now. So would love to see him turn it around. But yeah, I think if he makes it to Halloween and hasn't produced, then we're thinking snoozer territory.
It is nice to see as I turn to Frozen Tools that Raymond is up on power play 1 tonight. So he is playing with the Larkin, Perron and Kubalik unit. So maybe that's something. And I agree with you about the upcoming games with Minnesota. Maybe tough to score on my boy Mikey Comrie, who I always say the wrong name. Eric Mike Comrie. Yeah.
You're just bringing up Wolverines because I enjoy it.
Anyway, that's enough time. No, I kid. Yeah, I would be holding on to see if he can kind of get things going on the top power play. And like you said, a couple of games against some goalies who haven't been too hot of late. Lewis, that is all the time we have. It's not just because you mentioned your home state. It's because we have veered into the medium to long shift territory. Coach is going to be unhappy with us, but I had a great time, and I hope that everybody comes to hang out with us on Twitch next week when we return.
Yeah, me too. Another really fun fantasy week going in the books before we see you next. So good luck over the weekend. Hope everything comes up. Lots of goals for your folks. Please be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at ShortShiftsKK. You can find Brian and Elon at Keeping Carlson and Dave Betton of the Stream Scheme at NHL Stream Scheme. Definitely recommend you follow the Game Day suite of accounts at Game Day Lines, at Game Day Goalies, and at Game Day News. And if you don't love the little Twitter bird, you can head over to Game Day Tweets. The website will organize everything for you very nicely. I probably use it 2 or 3 times a day at a minimum. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. Our lovely on-screen graphics put together by John Reed. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.